Hi, hello, welcome. My name is Freya. I'm a knitter and textile student living in Glasgow with my girlfriend Karina and my two cats Kiska and Floki. Welcome back if you've been here before, or welcome if you are new. You're very much welcome here. So I've got so much to talk about this week. Last time I was saying how I'd kind of lost my knitting mojo for a bit. It is well and truly back. I have got so much to talk about, like I was saying. I've got two test knits, I've got a couple of gift knits, and also I have some knitting stories from my granny and also my granddad. So I will first of all talk about my knitting, and then I will talk about that at the end. So if you're not interested in that, or if you're just interested in that, you can skip. I've got timestamps, so if you go to the drop down thing, you can click and you can skip to those bits. So I've got my notes, I've got everything spread around me like usual, and let's jump into a whip that I've had for a while and I've shown quite a bit, and it is socks, of course. What is one of my little videos without socks? Now these look ridiculous. This is them. Yeah, they look crazy. They do fit. They do fit. So the yarn that I used this is a Countess Blaze, this main one, and this is a Coupe Knits sock here in Xenon, I think it's how you pronounce it. I'll have it linked below. But when I like to just browse yarn online, and I went onto the Countess Blaze's website and they said that they're completely shut down now. I don't know if that's like forever. It kind of looked like it, so unfortunately you can't buy this anymore. And apparently you can't buy any more of her stuff. So this is even more special because it's very much one of a kind, kind of. You know what I mean? So I had already made a pair of rib socks out of this main colour before, and I had enough to make another pair, so I was like, I have to make another pair, so long as I used a contrast heels, toes and cuffs. So the last pair that I made out of these were on 2.5, and I'm sure I did a 60 stitch 2x2 rib sock. Now that fit really well. It was my second rib sock that I'd ever made, and I'm kind of loving the fit of rib socks. I love making plain vanilla stockinette socks the most, but I like wearing these the most. So it's a give or take. But anyway, yes, I decided that for these I was really gonna try and tailor it to my foot. So I knit these on a 2.25. I knit 56 stitches for the leg, which is crazy. I think I've only knit like one pair of socks that started with a 56 stitch and it was on 2.5. So I really went for it. I really gambled on that fitting, but because it's rib, I'm sure that uses a bit more yarn to do like the pearls and so in my head it would fit. And it does. This ankle, this leg is really nice. I did a 17 heel flap and gusset repeat, and I decreased to 62 stitches, and I knit the foot even, so much longer than I'd ever knit a foot before, because I was trying it on periodically to make sure that it fitted. And I was saying this in the last one, I think, or one before, that I think I have been knitting the feet on my socks too short all this time, because when I put this on, it's just perfect. It's completely tailored to my foot. I don't know if it's because it's a rib sock. It's also tighter fitting, so it's like, and obviously I tried it on periodically and it's perfect. So I am excited to knit other pairs of socks using this recipe, because now that I wear any of my other socks, I can really feel that they are too short, which is so annoying. I did actually rip back the first pair that I made out of this main colour and knit them 10 rows longer, which it fits one of my feet perfectly, and one of my feet is a bit too long, which is so annoying. But it is better than what it was before. I'd rather it be too long than too short now, so yeah, so I'm excited to knit more socks that actually fit me a lot better. So I'm not going to talk any more about that because I've talked about them a lot before, and we will go on to what I am wearing. So in true, what's the word, true form, true fashion, I don't know, this is a knit that I didn't know I was going to knit the last time I filmed. Yeah, it's a test knit for Jessie Maid. She is probably my favourite knitwear pattern designer, I don't know. I love her patterns, they are really well written. I love how they are just like simple staples. I love her bralettes a lot. I've knitted the same pattern multiple times. I would highly recommend her patterns, they're so well written. And she finally put out a public test call, and I think I must have applied within like an hour. And I got it, which I really didn't think that I would, but I did, and it's so exciting. So this is the winter crop. I think that's just what it's called. It is, well, let me stand up. Let me stand up and show you. So it is a thick, I'm really bad at showing these off. I'm actually using instead of using my front facing camera, I'm using my back facing camera because I'm with the hope that it'll up the quality, so I can't really see what I'm doing. But this is a really chunky sweater. It is actually, I've not got the yarn. Of course I've not got the yarn, wait. So this is actually the contrast colour that I used on here, not the main colour. But it is the Drops Alpaca Boucle in beige. And this is dark grey mix, I think. I held this double for this. Now, let's get on to gauge first, because it's a long story with this. So I did actually gauge swatch, but I'm really bad at gauge swatching that. So I knit enough stitches, blah blah blah, to find the gauge. But I only knit, so you measure 4 inches by 4 inches. I knit enough stitches to get the gauge for the 4, but not enough to get the row gauge, because I don't know what goes through my head with this, right? I was like, right, fine. The pattern said 6.5, and I was like, do you know what? I think I've got the gauge. So I didn't finish it, block it, because I don't know why. Especially because it's a test knit, I definitely should have. Anyway, so I just ripped that out and started. So 6.5, I knit the medium, which is a size 3. So I knit, and I was like, this is quite a stiff fabric, it's quite dense. Now at the moment, I'm so used to knitting like airy light fabric, so this was quite a change. So I was like, I'm not sure about the fabric here, this feels a bit too dense. And I got to about here. I had increased enough to get the stitch count for the sleeve, and then obviously you knit some more to increase to get the right stitch count for the body. And I measured the sleeves, like, and I'm sure it was meant to be like 15 inches, and I was at like 11.5 inches, and I was like, something has gone wrong here. And I was like, oh no, I have to rip it out. So I ripped it all out, and I did a gauge swatch. Yes, another gauge swatch with needles larger. Now, this is like a new thing for me, that my gauge doesn't match that the pattern states. Like, my gauge is different. This is like a completely new thing. So I ended up going up from, do you know, I was actually looking, because it was a 6.5 in the pattern. I was like, right, I'll go up one whole size in terms of like to a 7.5. And I didn't have that, and I was looking, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to order it. And I typed it into like Amazon and Wool Warehouse, and I was like, it doesn't exist. Like, the needle sizes go like 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, and then it ends, and it's just like 7, 8, 9, 10. There's no halves after that. And I was like, right, if I go up to a 7, that's not gonna make it. So I went all the way up to an 8, and that's what I stuck at. That's the gauge that I got, pretty much bang on. I'm sure the gauge is, let me see if I've written this down. No, I've not. I think the gauge was like 10, yeah, it was 10 stitches to 20 rows, and I got gauge at 10.5 stitches and 19 rows. So many numbers and words. So that's pretty good. That is pretty good for me. So I was like, perfect. So I went and yeah, really happy with it. Things that I changed. Well, I will say that the first time I knit it, these increases, oh, I can't remember what the increase, left leaning and right leaning increases, I think. And they ended up, this is a line of increases, they ended up being really tight. Like, this is nice and stretchy, and then here it was just like kind of buckling up. And I was like, oh, I can block that out. So and I wasn't happy with it when I first knit the yoke. So when I ripped it out, I was really careful to be really loose when I knit this. I still think it's not as stretchy as the rest of it, but I actually quite like that, because with raglan, for me anyway, I always seem to get like, it always seems to like bunch up here. I don't know if you can see that. But for this, because it's like tighter and it's sort of, it's like closer to the body here, and it kind of makes a really nice shape instead of it being like, I don't really know how to describe it without you wearing it and feeling it, but I actually quite like the increases and I like how it feels. I pretty much got the measurements bang on. Oh, so one thing, she gives you all the measurements, which is amazing, like the schematics, is that what it's called? And she gives you all the measurements, like the neck, the bust, the waist, the arm, the length, everything. And I was looking at the measurements and measuring myself and all of that. And I've spoken about this before, about patterns always having a weird ratio for me between the arm and the body. It always seems that the arms are really a lot tighter than the body for my size. So I always end up going up a stitch count for the sleeve. Now for this, I was looking at the measurements and I was like, do you know what? They are bang on. And as I was knitting it, I knit the body obviously before the sleeves. I tried on the body and I was like, actually, that might be a bit too big. So I actually went down a stitch count to the sleeve below. So I knit the stitch count for the size 2 and the body for the size 3, and I really like how that turned out. This is that. I don't know how much you can see, but I didn't decrease at all, hence why it's sort of like a bell sleeve. Obviously I've turned that up. I like that look. And did the contrast bind off. So I'm really happy with the fact that I did that. I still think it would have looked really nice if I kept to my size, if I kept to the right stitch count actually. So it wasn't like a drastic difference, but I still like it. I don't think there's anything else to say. Oh, apart from the fact that I held the yarn double, but I used quite a lot more meterage. I'm sure the pattern, so the pattern called for 450 meters for my size. Obviously I held the yarn double, so that would have been 900 for me. And I ended up using 1080, which is quite a lot more. That's almost 200 yards more. So I did have to end up placing another order, and thankfully they had the right dye lot of this colour. So it all worked out fine, but that was quite a drastic difference. The only thing that I changed was I did add 2 short rows at the back. It's just what I do. I can't not do it. And it has leveled it out. It's not made the back longer, it's just leveled it out, which I don't know, I can't knit a jumper without it because it rides up, and I don't get how other people aren't annoyed with that or how it doesn't happen to other people. I don't know. So I changed that, but I also added, I think I added an inch and a half maybe to the length that she suggests in the pattern, and she gives the meterage to do. But I don't think that warrants 200 meters more. Anyway, so that's something that I fed back. That's one of the feedbacks that I gave. Is that the right grammar? I don't know. So that's that. That is pretty much all I have to say. I do like the fabric is really bouncy. This is my first time using boucle yarn, and it's really bouncy. It's really weird actually. You can tell it's gonna be so warm. I am actually getting a bit warm just sat in it now, and it's a really cold room. So that says a lot. I think it's gonna be such a warm jumper. I'm definitely gonna get a lot of use out of this as it is winter and I live in Scotland and I get quite cold. So it's perfect knit for this time of year. I think the pattern, it's not a secret test knit, like I think all of her patterns have been dyed recently that I can see, so I can show it. And the pattern is coming out maybe like the 12th of December or the 14th of December, I'm not too sure. It's around then anyway, and I'll post on Instagram when the pattern comes out, and I'll tell you on here because I would really recommend it. It's so fast. I mean, 8mm needles, it's so fast. Okay, that's it. That's it. So next we will go on to gift knits. I'm going to group some into gift knits. So if you're my family, go to the drop down menu and click on the next section, please. Thank you. So for people who aren't my family, for this part I have 2 hats and half a sock. So the 2 hats that I've got are actually of the same pattern. I just cast on the first round. I just cast on in my last one, and now I have 2, and I've got mohair in my mouth. So I have 2. So this is the Dreaming Slow hat pattern. I'm sure that Kat from Heather and Hops designed it, but it's sold under the Ching Fibre name in Ravelry and on their website. I'll link it all below, obviously. But so I've knit this hat once before. I've got my hair everywhere. I've knit this hat once before for my little sister because she requested a hat. And I'd always wanted to knit this hat pattern, but I'm not a hat wearer. So I was really excited to knit that for her because I don't know why I've been in a hat knitting mood recently. I've never really wanted to knit hats, but I have. So I bought yarn to make these two because I've knitted socks for a lot of people in my family, but there are people that I don't think would wear socks or would wear something else more. Do you know what I mean? And socks is quite a time investment, and it's a really big gift for me to give, purely because of that. And these are so fast. Like, if I was to just knit purely from morning to night, I could do it in 2 days. So it's a really fun pattern to make. So it's a DK weight held together with 2 strands of mohair on a 3.75 needle. I knit the medium for these, and I knit the length to 8¼ inches before I decreased. And I think that's the longest length that they suggest, but I like a longer brim, so I knit the longest for that. So the yarn that I used, I've got here. So for the blue one, I used this. I can kind of see in my mirror that is coming out really a lot more saturated. It's actually like a dusky grey blue. This is Drops Lima, which is a 65% wool and 35% alpaca blend. It's a DK weight, so 50 grams is 100 meters. I used about 70 grams of this for the medium longest length hat, and then I held it together with this, which is again a Drops mohair, Drops Kid Silk in blue. I don't know what it is. It is pretty saturated in real life too. It's a very bold colour, and actually when I was knitting this, my hands like got dyed blue. Like my fingertips where I was holding the fabric and where I was tensioning the yarn was dyed blue, and then I was using wooden needles and they were tinted blue afterwards, which is kind of annoying, but there we go. So normally I wouldn't block this. I don't think there's really a point of blocking hats because I don't want to block them and overstretch them and then it being baggy, and it just doesn't really need blocking, especially a ribbed hat. But I will be washing this because I think if it rained or even if you wore it for a long period of time and you had it on your forehead, I actually do think that would transfer a bit of colour. So that's a bit annoying, but that's fine. So for the next one, I am rootling around in this bag to try and find the, yeah, okay, so I've got it all. So for these, again, this is a Drops Lima in, I don't know, colourway. Again, same yarn. So I'm pretty sure it's dark grey mix or something like that. That sounds about right. Held together with 1 strand of Drops Kid Silk in black, but I held that again with this colour, and this is all that I've got left, which I'm pretty sure is like 1.5 grams, so pretty proud of that in terms of yarn management. Yeah, that was pretty lucky. This is a Mayflower Super Kid Silk. This is actually, yeah, this is 76% mohair and 24% silk. This is 75% and 25% silk, I'm sure. Yeah, this is a leftover from my Earth and Air by James and Watts that I made, so I've pretty much completely used up that mohair, which is just so satisfying. I love doing that, and it really annoys me that I've got this much left and this much left, and you know, so now I've got to think of a smart way to use all of this. I'm sure that I will. It'll come to me sometime. Yeah, so that's that. Those are the hats, and I have kind of allocated them to some people. I do have an idea of who they're going to, but it might change. Who knows? We'll see. So my next gift knit is let's get it down here, is a scrappy sock, of course. I don't know if I showed this in my last one. I've showed a scrappy sock in every podcast, so I apologise. I won't talk about this for long. This is it. This is just a scrappy sock. I have knit 3 scrappy socks so far for my family, all in men's sizes, and this is a women's size. For gifted socks, I just like to do a 64 stitch. I did 64 stitches, 20 rounds for the cuff, 50 for the foot. I'm going to do I've done 16 repeats for the heel flap, and then I'll decrease to 64 again and just knit it however many inches for a size 6 foot I think I'm doing. So that's that. I won't talk about that any more than that. So that's my gift knits over, and my next one is so exciting. My next one is another test knit, and it is by a brand that has brought out amazing patterns recently. They are just on fire with their patterns, and it's Ching Fibre. The designer is Layla, I think is her name. I knit the, what's it called, Simply Wave Crop, one of my favourite knits I've ever made. I love that. I want to knit another one, but I want to find the perfect yarn. Anyway, she put out a test call and I was like, I can't not do this. She has asked us not to show the progress on our test knit. If you go onto her Instagram, I think she might still have the picture up of what it is, but it's a jumper. It is made by holding a strand of 4-ply with 2 strands of mohair, and guys, so gauge swatching. This is a new revelation to me that I'm like, I can't not do this whenever I knit something. Now look at this gauge swatch. Are you ready? How big is that? I know. Very exciting that I've done this. So this gauge. So I started here. I put my little yarn over so I know what size. So this is a 5mm needle. This is what it's called for in the pattern. Now the gauge for the pattern is something that I can't remember, but this is too tight. This fabric was too tight. I actually really like this fabric though. Like I like the fabric that one gives. So if I find a pattern using that same gauge and fabric, I'd really like to make something out of that, but that was too tight. So then I went up to 6mm for this square, and pre-blocking I was like, oh, that might even be a bit too tight as well, so I was like, right, let's go up to a 6.5. Look at the difference. I don't know if you can see that because it is curling up, but look at the difference between that size. Look, that's, I don't know if you can properly see that. So anyway, this is a 6.5mm here. She did actually change the gauge after I'd knitted this, so that there were more rows per 4 inches, which I didn't know when I was knitting this. But anyway, I blocked it and I saw that she'd changed it, and actually the 6mm needle was the one that got closest to the gauge. So I'm really happy that I knit this. It's such a beautiful fabric. It's really, honestly, I cannot wait to knit this. I've got quite a lot to say about the yarn and my yarn choice though. So let me show you the yarn. This does actually call for a contrast colour, and that's my contrast colour. It's only a tiny bit that's used in the pattern. This is left over from my sock, and I think it goes perfectly for a little pop of colour. So that's exciting. I'm really happy with that combo. So these are the 2 yarns that I'm holding together. It is a Drops Flora, which is 65% wool and 35% alpaca. This is in off-white. I'm not sure if that's showing up properly. It is just like an off-white. It's not a white. And I'm holding it together with this, which is Moon Shadow by Drops Kid Silk again. Now I had already made something using this mohair before, and I actually had quite a lot of the ball left over. I think I might have it here actually. Now the yarn that I don't know if this will, in person this is quite a difference. I don't know if it will show up, probably not. But this, the one that dye lot that I bought before is like a bright white with white mohair and like grey fibres, grey mohair like mottled into it. But this one is like a yellowy cream strand with the like grey mohair fuzz around it. I don't know how to describe it. And this, I can't unsee it. This is like a nicotine stained version of this. And in my head, I envisaged a fabric that was white with a little bit of grey mottled in it, which in reality I have got like quite a yellowy cream fabric with grey mottled through it, which isn't what I was going for. I did want a brighter white. And I was really contemplating just going back and ordering a white and a white mohair, but I was like, no, I can't wait any longer. And then I'd have to find a pattern using these yarns that I'd bought, and that's dangerous territory. I don't want to overspend. This is already like a reasonably expensive project for me. So I was like, relax, it'll still look nice. It's not what I envisioned, but it's still such a beautiful fabric, the feel of it. And the drape is going to be so lovely. Really excited to finish that. So I have started it, but I have gotten to a point in the pattern where where I believe there's a mistake, and I'm still waiting to hear back from the designer to see if it was a mistake or if it is a design choice that she had purposely made. So I don't know the answer yet, so which breaks my heart. I really just want to go full steam ahead and finish it, but I can't. That's why I started knitting. Like, I knitted this and in between, like, waiting for this yarn and then waiting for me buy it, I had to buy more balls. So in between waiting on knitting this, I knit the hats and finished the socks, and then I got the yarn for that when I bought more yarn for this. So I went straight into knitting that. But obviously now that I've stalled, I've gone back to having to knit on the scrappy socks. And I'm not in really a sock mood. I'm in the really exciting first stages of knitting that jumper mood. So I'm in two minds of just knitting with my corrections. I did all of the maths for all of the sizes in order to correct that mistake. If it's a design choice, then I'm gonna feel awful. But that's how much I wanted to knit on this, that I did all of the maths and all of that to get the right stitch count and all of that stuff. Anyway, that's all I really have to say on that, because obviously I can't really give you much more. So that's my only two whips. Well, I do have the honey clutch whip, but that's on the back burner. That's not really getting picked up too much. It'll get done at some point, I'm sure. That's a really nice fabric to knit on. So yeah, that's all of the whips and finished objects that I want to talk about. And now, I don't know how long I've been talking because I can't see the screen, so if I've been rambling for ages and and it's going to be really long, then I apologise, but you can skip, not watch, or watch what parts you want. Yeah, so let's get into, oh no, before we do that, I can't believe I forgot about this. So the reason why I chose now to ask some questions to my granny and granddad about knitting is because Heather and Hops did a giveaway thing, and the prompt was to talk about some knitting stories that you had, and she chose me, which I can't describe how excited and happy I was about that. So I got the prizes actually a couple of, or even like the day after I filmed my other one. So I've had these for a while and admired them and mulled over the possibilities that I could do with these. So first of all, it came in this. I think every project at the moment, and for like the past like however many months, have had mohair in it, so what could be more perfect? I don't know. So that's such a nice bag, it's such good quality, and actually I don't really have any project or knitting bags. I just use like these things that the yarn comes in from the website that I order the yarn from, which works. It's see-through, so I can see what the project is, but it's so nice to have this, and I'm gonna keep like my knitting notes notebook and bigger notions and all of that beside me, and these are the things that keep so exciting. So this beautiful lino cut card with her little logo on, which is beautiful. I love handmade stuff, obviously. I mean, I am a knitter and textile student, so everything that I make is handmade, which brings me so much joy. So that's lovely. And these are the yarns. This is phenol yarn. I'm dyslexic and I'm pretty sure that's a different language. Raumer. This is 100% yarn, 100% wool, my god. 50 grams is 175 meters, which I think is a sport weight. In this, oh, I can see in my mirror that that's not coming out. It's like a bright foresty turquoise colour. I think it's coming out blue on camera, but it's not that. And actually, I was thinking for this that I have got the Hello from My Colours crop top by Jessie made the pattern that I really, really want to make. And I think that this would be a really nice colour to put in that colour work. And even though I think that's a 4-ply pattern, that would work as one of the patterns, even though it's a sport weight, that would work. So that's what that's going into, I'm pretty sure. Then another thing that she gave me with this was this. This is hand dyed by her mohair. I mean, this is like one of a kind. So I feel really special having this. I've never had like hand dyed mohair. I've always had commercial mohair. And this is like tonal. It's beautiful, and I really need to find a special thing for this. So this is definitely going to be sat where I can see it, and for me to really find the right pattern for that. So that's going to be really excited for that, to knit that up, because I've never knit with the tonal mohair, apart from a self-striping mohair by Drops, which isn't the same, obviously. And this is the other yarn that's not showing up what it is actually like. It's like a tonal light blue, and this is from Bluebell Yarn. This is the most fancy yarn that I've ever had my hands on. I've not knitted with too much fancy yarn, so this is like next level exciting for me. This is 50 grams Falkland Corriedale and 50% British mohair, which is like the perfect mix for me. I mean, how beautiful is that? It honestly is so soft. It's such a nice wool, and the fabric this is gonna make is gonna be beautiful. I'm 100% sure of. So this is a 4-ply. It's 400 meters per 100 grams, and there's 70 grams here. I can't do the maths of what that is. I'm pretty sure you can use this wool for socks, like no nylon socks. And I have wanted to make no nylon socks for the longest time because I'm a big sock knitter, but I don't like using plastic in my knitting. I'm really trying to avoid that. So naturally I've wanted to knit no nylon socks, and I'm pretty sure this blend of yarns can be made into no nylon socks. Now, I am so conflicted, because this is such a beautiful yarn, and I'm like, can I put it into socks where I know that it will last a lot less time than if I knit it into something else? I'm so conflicted. I think I'm gonna wait to read up a bit more about no nylon, but if I don't knit this into no nylon socks, I'm going to knit it into wrist warmers, because I wear wrist warmers every single day when I'm sat on the couch, because my wrists get so cold, because I like jumpers that have like open sleeved I don't really have a lot of jumpers that have tight sleeves, so I'm always wearing wrist warmers. And this is such a soft yarn, it's so special. So being able to wear it every single day, just, and for it to last a lifetime probably for me, kind of feels more where I'm gonna go, but we'll see if I'm brave enough. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to get another no nylon sock yarn, wear that a lot, and test it out and see if I'm brave enough, basically. So that's that. Really, oh, did I see the yeah. So really special. So exciting. I absolutely like the biggest joy in life is getting gifted wool. There's just something about it. Gifted knitwear is like that's top tier gift. And actually my favourite pair of socks is a pair that my granny made God knows how many years ago. It's properly like felted a bit and completely worn, not worn holes in yet, which is really nice, but well worn. There's just something about wearing knitwear that somebody else has knitted you that it's like, who bakes for the baker, who knits for the knitter. No one anymore, no one knits for me anymore. But the things that I knit myself are still special. I've gone on a ramble here, but oh, she also sent this, which is like lavender and hops, I think. Smells beautiful, and I'm putting that in my there's nothing in there apart from yarn, so it's going right in there. I've got a little cedar flowers that like wooden flowers that are scattered all about there, so that is going straight in there and is going to make everything smell beautiful. It's actually kind of made me want to make more of those because it smells so beautiful, and it would be really nice to put a lot in there because I am really scared about moths. In this house, I've just moved to this house. In my last house we didn't get moths. I think we had maybe one or two the whole time we lived there, maybe a bit more, I don't know. But when we moved into here in summer, we had a lot of moths and I was so paranoid, hence why all of the cedar stuff. So anyway, lavender, I want to make, I'm quite inspired to make more and put them in there. so that's that, and let us get on to the knitting stories. Now this is long, so brace yourself. I've got it all on my laptop, so I will be reading from my laptop, which is down here. I've tried to put it into concise bullet points. Is that? I don't know. But yes, like I was saying before, I am dyslexic, so I'm probably not gonna be very good at reading this out. If you're my family, please do not listen to me tell these stories awfully. If you send me or my mum a message, I'm sure we can send you the notes that she wrote, so please don't. I'm really bad at telling stories as well, so please don't listen to me tell them awfully. Please. So we'll start off with, my granny and granddad, they were both born in 1929. So how old does that make them? 95, I think. I can't do mental maths that fast, but so they both grew up on small farms in Birsay, Orkney. So it's Birsay if you want to look up where that is in Orkney. Beautiful place. My granddad had a farm next to the sea. My granny had a farm like in between Birsay and Stromness, I think. So we'll start off with my granddad's knitting stories. So this is what he had to say. I can't remember specifically the questions I asked, but they're not really. This is just what he said about what he remembers about knitting growing up. So all the women knitted from a very young age, until they were very old as well, basically until they died. Um, if they went visiting anyone in the evening, they always took their knitting with them, and apparently you should never be hand idle. I'm sure a lot of a lot of you can relate to not being a like. For me, I cannot sit and be hand idle. I have to be busy. I have to be making something. So that's what they did. So the soil in Bersey was rich. It was next to the sea, so it was rich, and they actually used it for pasture for beef. And it would have been a waste to put sheep on such fertile soil. And there was a bit of snobbery apparently about sheep farming being the poorer thing to do. So my granddad's mother, my great granny, could spin, but they tended to just buy their yarn there. My granddad's dad's sister, Grace, her spinning wheel was clean because she was neat apparently. My granddad's mum's spinning wheel was dirtier apparently, so that's funny. Apparently they taught boys and girls to knit at school in between the wars, and that was a new thing to teach the boys, and they didn't like it because it wasn't a boys thing to do apparently. Apparently my granddad's teacher said to him, "I don't think this is a good idea," and he was told to write in his jotter instead because apparently he wasn't good at it. A man called Alistair, a cousin of that family, used to visit my grandparents a lot, my granddad a lot, not my I don't know. Apparently he claimed that his mother could spin and knit a pair of socks in an evening. The evenings up there are very long and dark because obviously it's so up north, and I did actually live there for a couple of years, and there are some days where the sunlight, like the daylight, is basically non-existent. It's crazy. That's probably very much an exaggeration. I don't think you could possibly spin and knit a pair of socks in an evening, but so that's what my granddad had to say. So my granny's knitting stories are quite a lot more. So my granny also lived on a small farm, and they always had enough sheep to keep them in wool. The raw wool was sent to Brora in North Scotland and the mainland to be washed, spun and dyed and then sent back for knitting. She remembers a time when there was a lot of wool needing to be spun, perhaps during the war. They had 2 spinning wheels, but she can't remember who could spin. They all got hand knitted jerseys as kids. Every year they chose what colour they wanted their new jerseys to be, so that's fun. My granny can remember her first shop bought jumper. It was pale green and wonderful because it wasn't handmade. Apparently it was a lot posher to have bought knitwear, and I think it's flipped the other way around now because, well, to me it has, because yeah, I can't, because yeah. Apparently they would unravel jumpers to make into other things. The yarn would be thicker and stronger because it had matted a little bit, and of course it was wiggly. I'm sure we've all pulled out and frogged knitwear and it's been like noodles. So she commented on that being awkward and wiggly. They also knitted socks with heels and toes, with different yarns, so they could be taken out and replaced when they worn out because it was quicker and more economical than knitting a whole new pair, which is, I've always secretly wanted my heels and toes to wear out so that I can do the same thing and rip them out and reknit them, but none of my socks have actually worn holes in, so that's not something that I've done. Apparently my granny never saw people with patterns. Apparently they just all knew how to knit. She remembers learning to knit, but not who taught her. She said the first things they learned to knit were kettle or pot holders. They were just rectangles or squares for holding like metal handles or lids. Apparently that was just the kids' thing to do. Most kids knitted before they went to school, mostly girls. Apparently my granny's brother Jim learned how to knit, but that was, she thought, purely so he could taunt the rest of them with his skill, but he never actually made something functional. Lily, who was a neighbour of my granny, started school with her, and she had knitted her own stockings for going to school at age 5. Apparently that was abnormally good, but I can't even imagine being able to knit anything when I was anything apart from like a scarf. So that's crazy. So Auntie, she's not actually put a name, so I'm pretty sure they just called her Auntie. I don't know her name. That was my granny's mum's dad's sister. So my granny's great auntie. She lived with them on the farm and helped bring them up whilst my granny's mum was busy doing farm stuff. Apparently she wasn't very crafty. And auntie, she made jumpers and mittens and knitted till the last days of her life. Apparently she knitted socks, but she when she got older, she had to get help with like mistakes or drop stitches. Yeah. And she lived to 96, so she was still knitting up until then, which is crazy. So my granny's auntie Sissy, she had polio, so she couldn't walk and she just had to sit. And she learned beautiful knitting. She was very skilled and she used patterns. She did Fair Isle stuff, and she knitted for people outside of the family, unlike other knitters who just did it for the family. And she sold her stuff, so this gave her a small income for a disabled person. She had no family herself because she had polio, so she knitted for her brother's kids, i.e. my granny and her siblings. And she also did lacy stuff. Apparently everyone knitted shawls for kids, babies and adults. So yeah, my granny's granny in Stromness and her auntie Sissy all bought their wool because they weren't farmers and they lived in town. Apparently my mum remembers looking at the swatches that auntie Sissy had of Shetland wool that she sent off for, and as a kid she'd never seen such a variety of colours, and the swatches were mesmerising because there were just so many colours. My granny can't remember to read my granny can't remember learning to read knitting patterns, and it was just second nature. She was exposed to patterns because of Auntie Sissy, and her knitting intrigued and inspired them apparently. So both my granny's mum and my granddad's mum weren't crafts people. They were very functional, so they didn't have fun with it. Apparently it was just a necessity for them. Few people, if they had a family, had the leisure time to do it, so it wasn't really done for fun. Well, for them anyway. Both my granddad and my granny's parents did not approve of knitting on a Sunday. It wasn't really allowed, so it sounds like knitting was classed as work rather than leisure. And she also said that my mum said that she learned how to knit very young, and she said that she knitted a loopy jumper with a pattern droop when she was 10, and she said on circular needles, so cheating. I didn't know that would have been classed as cheating. Like, did people wear knit like loopy or colour work jumpers without a round yoke? I just don't, I've never heard of that. So apparently that was cheating back then, but and my auntie Fiona said that she knitted a jumper when she was 8. So there you go. That's all of the stories that I have from my granny and granddad's living up in Orkney. So yeah, very interesting. And I got that obviously I read all of that, and how could you not be inspired to get your knitting mojo back and just knit. So I hope any people found that interesting. Actually, when I was thinking about knitting stories and what I remember my granny telling me, for some reason I remembered the sock pattern that she used to knit all of the socks with out of this really old magazines. She also said that they got knitting patterns from magazines, and I remember looking at all of the old magazines my granny had, and there were knitting patterns in every single one of them. It's like really difficult knitting patterns, but to me it looked like, anyway, just for normal like people to be knitting. Yeah, so and she showed me the sock pattern that she uses to knit every pair of socks apparently, and I took pictures of that. I'll put them here, but if anybody wants the pictures I can send them to you if you message me on Instagram, because I don't know how old that pattern is, but you can probably see by how tattered and crushed up the paper is, and how it's in like really thin strips because it's from a magazine and really hard to read. So yeah, I just thought I'd add that. So what am I gonna knit next? Obviously I want to knit my test knit. I really want to knit that. Like I was saying, I might actually just go ahead and knit my revised things and hope that is right, and if it's not I'll rip it out, I guess. So yeah, I want to knit that and I will finish a scrappy pair of socks and I actually don't know what else I'm gonna knit after that. Probably some more gift knits. I am wanting to finish all of my gift knits pretty early. Obviously I've already finished a lot of them, so that's good. And it makes Christmas a little bit more relaxing when you get to it. Last year I was knitting up until like a couple of days before for ones that I had to send away as well, so hopefully that won't happen this year. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this podcast. It was really nice to get all of those stories, and I hope other people found it nice as well. So yeah, I hope you're having a good day or a good week, a good month, and if you're not, then I hope it starts to look up for you and things start to get a bit better. If you've not got a knitting mojo, I hope that inspired you like it inspired me. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next. Oh, if you want to subscribe and like, you can. My Instagram is Freya Moar Textiles, and my Ravelry is Freya Moar. Yeah, so join me if you want. So yeah, I'll see you next time. Thank you.